Good evening, everyone. We'll be starting in just a couple of minutes. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We will be starting in a couple of minutes.
It is now 6:01 p.m. on April 25th, 2023, and we will now begin this virtual public meeting. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Florida Department of Transportation's Public Information Meeting for State Road 838, Sunrise Boulevard. I am Adam Naeem, the Project Manager with the Florida Department of Transportation, or FDOT. Before we begin, I would like to recognize all federal, state, county, and city officials who are present with us today. If there are any elected officials with us, I invite you to please introduce yourself by raising your hand through the control panel. You can also submit your name using the chat function as well. I do see that we have Commissioner John Herbst from the City of Fort Lauderdale available with us. And we also have Karen Warfel, who is city staff from the City of Fort Lauderdale. Thank you for your participation in today's meeting, and we will now proceed with our presentation. I will now turn it over to Maureen, who will be your moderator for this presentation.
Thank you, Adam. Good evening. I am Maureen Balmaceda, and I will be your moderator for today's virtual public meeting. Thank you for your participation in today's meeting. We will now proceed with our presentation. Before we start the presentation, we would like to share some information to help you participate in the meeting. We are using the GoToWebinar platform for the meeting. There is no cost to the public to log in or dial in to participate in the meeting. On your computer or device screen, you should see something that looks like the image in the right-hand corner. To listen to the meeting, your computer or device speakers are selected by default. If you prefer to listen by phone, select Phone Call in the audio pane of the control panel and dial in using the information provided. The blue arrow points to the question pane. You can type a comment or question into the question pane at any time during the meeting. Then click Send to submit your comment or question to staff. The questions submitted will be answered after the presentation. If we do not have time to answer all questions, a written response will be provided on the project website. If you are participating via telephone and have questions or comments, please call the FDOT Project Manager at 954-777-4440 or at adam.naeem@dot.state.fl.us after the meeting, and a response will be provided. Their contact information is also provided at the end of the presentation. The Florida Department of Transportation is required to comply with various non-discrimination laws and regulations, including Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Public participation is solicited without regard to race, color, national origin, age, sex, religion, disability, or family status. Persons wishing to express concerns about Title VI may do so by contacting either the Florida Department of Transportation District 4 Title VI Coordinator or the Florida Department of Transportation Statewide Title VI Coordinator. The contact information for these officials are shown on the screen. As part of FDOT's ongoing safety campaign for the month of April, we are bringing awareness to the National Distracted Driving Awareness Month. Distracted driving is one of the fastest growing safety issues on the roads today. Distracted drivers aren't just a threat to themselves, they are a danger to everyone on the road. Please continue to be safe and attentive on the road. For more information on distracted driving, please visit distraction.gov. At this time, I'd like to introduce the project team. As previously mentioned, we have Adam Naim, the project manager for the Florida Department of Transportation. Emilio Corrales, the consultant project manager with HDR Engineering, and Ron Sanchez, the bridge engineer on record with HDR Engineering. The project is located in Broward County in the city of Fort Lauderdale. The project limits are west of Middle River Drive to east of Northeast 26th Avenue and over the Intercoastal Waterway. This project is made up of two components, the roadway project and the bridge project. The roadway project will address the deficient pavement conditions by repaving the existing asphalt pavement and other improvements for traffic and pedestrian safety. The bridge project will provide bridge rehabilitation that will include structural repairment to the bridge, mechanical and electrical work, as well as a tender house and parking area. To talk about the Sunrise Boulevard Bridge project, we must discuss the current state of the corridor and bridge and the needs of the local and regional users. The Sunrise Boulevard corridor currently serves as a major roadway for all types of traffic and is bordered by many residential and commercial properties. The current corridor is reaching the end of its life with worn-out striping on the roadway, making it hard for drivers to identify their lanes, worn-out asphalt, and broken sidewalks. The corridor must be repaved and resurfaced in order to last longer. This process will strip away the existing asphalt and replace it with new asphalt and striping. In addition, it can use enhancements in traffic safety, signing and pavement markings, lighting, signalization, drainage, ADA accommodations, and ITS. Intelligent Transportation Systems, or ITS, is the use of sensing, analysis, control, and communications technologies in order to improve safety, mobility, and efficiency of ground transportation. ADA accommodations include a uniform walking surface to provide a smoother pedestrian experience. This diagram displays how the current roadway looks today within the roadway project limits. There are currently 3 11-foot lanes, 4-foot bike lanes, with a 25-foot median and a varying 5 to 10-foot sidewalk along with curb and gutter. The proposed roadway project typical section displayed here reduces the 2 inside lanes from 11 feet to 10 feet in order to widen the bike lanes from 4 feet to 6 feet on either side. The median will remain and the sidewalks will be upgraded and improved. Pedestrian safety improvements include the incorporation of a signalized mid-block pedestrian crossing at Northeast 25th Avenue. Here we see an example of what is a signalized mid-block crosswalk. This crosswalk addresses the need expressed by the community for safer pedestrian facilities in an area highly trafficked by pedestrians and vehicles alike. These crosswalks typically consist of a number of features to alert motorists to the presence of a crosswalk, specifically drawing attention to a pedestrian who is currently crossing or waiting to cross the road. A combination of high visibility markings, refuge islands, active warning beacons, stop bars set back from the crosswalk, and crosswalk signs above and on both sides of the street can help provide a better visibility for pedestrians in the crosswalk. This graphic is an example for reference. The actual design of the mid-block crosswalk at Northeast 25th Avenue is still under development. Let's watch an informational video from the Federal Highway Administration on Pedestrian Refuge Island. As you watch, please keep in mind that this is an example of what will be implemented. Our mid-block crosswalk will be signalized, so traffic will be stopped in both directions to allow pedestrians a safe crossing.
In general, a safe place for pedestrians to cross the road is at a well-marked, controlled location, often at an intersection. But in 2016, 72% of pedestrian fatalities occurred at mid-block locations between intersections. So, how do we reduce fatalities at these locations and provide safe transportation?
We apologize. We know that we're getting some feedback, so we're going to share this a different way. The Sunrise Boulevard bridges also currently serve as a major roadway for all types of traffic and maintains the traffic heading to the beach. The purpose of the bridge project is to extend the service of life of the bridge and address the glaring needs. The current bridge conditions can use improvements in the structure of the bridge span to create a safer path for pedestrians and bicyclists using the scenic route to access the beach, and the installation of a solid aluminum deck with electrical and mechanical work. The south side of the MSE wall and the fender can use replacement. MSE stands for Mechanically Stabilized Earth. MSE retaining walls are the walls that line the supporting bases of bridge structures. Lastly, to ensure safety to the tenders while arriving and departing from their shift, a tender house parking area will be installed near the tender house. As a result of this project, the bridge operation will be more reliable and the bridge structure will be more resilient. This diagram displays how the existing bridges look today within the bridge project limits. There are currently 3 12-foot lanes, 4.5-foot paved shoulders, and a 5-foot protected sidewalk pathway along the right-hand side of each bridge. The proposed bridge project typical section shown here reduces all 3 travel lanes to a width of 11 feet in order to increase the shoulders on either side to 7.5 feet. The sidewalks on either side will remain at 5 feet wide. The project team has received requests for protected bike lanes on the bridge. The team has evaluated the potential for protected bike lanes, and it poses a hazard for the bicyclists should the barricade be moved to protect the bike lanes. The bridge leaves have joints on the bridge that allow them to open and close. The joint is circled on this screen. This point of view is from the opposite side of the bike lane, but we wanted to display a clear view of what the joint looks like. When the bridge leaf closes, this is what the joint looks like on the roadway. Should the barricade be moved to the outside of the bike lane, the joint would be exposed to bicyclists and it becomes a hazard as bicycle tires can lodge in the joint and cause an accident. This point of view shows the bridge joint from the sidewalk where the future bicycle lanes will traverse. Currently, as you see here, this joint is under the existing barricades that protect the sidewalk and is not exposed to bicyclists and pedestrians. This project is a bridge rehabilitation and maintenance project to the existing bridge. For the protected bike lanes to be incorporated into the design of the bridge, it would have to be a bridge replacement project in the future. The shoulder widening will provide for 3-foot wider bike lanes on the bridge. They are currently 4 feet wide and will be 7.5 feet wide, providing more space for separation from vehicular traffic for the bicyclists. The new deck replacement will also improve the riding experience for bicyclists. Here we see an example of the new aluminum deck next to open grate deck that is similar to what currently exists on the bridge. As you can see, the aluminum gives a continuous non-slip surface that will provide stability for bicyclists. Due to the highly trafficked nature of the project corridor, FDOT conducted a safety study on Sunrise Boulevard between Northeast 25th Avenue and Northeast 26th Avenue. The study made several recommendations for implementation and were developed based on crash data analysis, field reviews, and operational analysis. Recommendations include changes such as adding retroreflective border to existing signal backplates. This helps improve the visibility of the traffic light in a range of weather conditions, power outages, and for older or colorblind drivers. More recommendations include the installation of signs alerting the drivers to yield to pedestrians, increasing pedestrian crossing times, and many more, as you can see listed here. The improvements have been or will be implemented by FDOT, Broward County, and the City of Fort Lauderdale. Broward County Traffic is here at the meeting to answer any questions you may have regarding signal timing surrounding the project. Some of these recommendations are being incorporated into the Sunrise Boulevard Bridge project to meet the recommendations of the safety study, such as the signalized mid-block crosswalk that we discussed earlier in this presentation. For more information on this safety study, please contact the project manager. Their contact information will be posted at the end of this presentation. During construction, the project team has come up with a plan on maintaining the flow of traffic with minimal disruptions. The work will be done in phases in order to reduce the effects of construction on the community. From previous coordination with the local community on the Western Sunrise Bridge project, we know how important it is to maintain access and flow of traffic for the residents and businesses in this area, especially the Sunrise Intracoastal community that relies on Sunrise Boulevard for access to and from the community. Special events held in the area, such as Tortuga Music Festival, the Fort Lauderdale Fort Lauderdale Air Show, and many others will be considered by the department in the traffic control plan. We will now display a series of aerials of the project corridor with the proposed traffic control plan during construction. Red shaded areas are proposed lane closures. Green arrows depict the proposed eastbound flow of traffic, and the blue arrows depict the proposed westbound flow of traffic. Below each aerial, the lane closures and temporary lane restriping are displayed from the driver's point of view. The red shaded areas and east and westbound areas will be displayed on these graphics as well. 2 lanes of traffic in each direction will be maintained throughout each phase of construction. The bridge project traffic control plan is broken up into 2 phases. Each phase will be a period of 3 months. The time frame for these phases are still in the works, and the project team will try to minimize scheduling impacts. The traffic control plan timeline will be presented at the construction open house once the project moves into construction. During both phases, the design team will install temporary traffic control devices, signs, and pavement markings that are necessary to maintain the flow of traffic. During Phase 1, the eastbound bridge will be closed for construction. The westbound bridge will be restriped to maintain the flow of traffic with 2 10-foot lanes eastbound and 2 10-foot lanes westbound. Pedestrians and bicyclists will share the existing 5-foot barrier-protected sidewalk during this phase of construction. During Phase 2, the westbound bridge will be closed for construction. Like the previous phase, the eastbound bridge will be restriped to maintain the flow of traffic eastbound and westbound, and pedestrian and bicyclists will also share the existing 5-foot barrier-protected sidewalk during this phase of construction. The roadway project consists of 4 phases that help maintain the flow of traffic. During all 4 phases, the construction team will improve the pedestrian ramps, sidewalks, signals, and lighting. The work will be done on one side of the road at a time to always maintain pedestrian facilities accessible. While working on the stretches of sidewalks in between intersections, the intersection crossings will not be closed. The curb and gutter segments will be under construction during off-peak hours of traffic. During Phase 1, the construction team will install temporary barricades and signs to close outside lanes going both eastbound and westbound over the bridge. The inner 2 lanes will remain open as shown here. During Phase 2, the construction team will install temporary barricades and signs to close the inside lanes. The outer 2 lanes going eastbound and westbound will remain open. The repaving of the left turn lane and inside lanes along Sunrise Boulevard will be performed during off-peak hours during this phase of construction as well. During Phase 3, there will be closure to the inside lanes and medians. The outer 2 lanes going eastbound and westbound will remain open. Repaving of the left turn lane and inside lanes along Sunrise Boulevard will be performed during off-peak hours during this phase of construction as well. Finally, during Phase 4, the construction team will install temporary work zone signs and place the finishing touches along the entire project limits 1 lane at a time. During this time, the final pavement markings will be installed. As you see here, 2 lanes of traffic going in each direction will be maintained throughout the construction of the project, resulting in minimal disruption to the flow of traffic and no access impacts to the surrounding communities and businesses. There are proposed improvements that may have potential impacts to maritime traffic. These improvements include fender replacements, potential underwater cable installation, mechanical and electrical upgrading, and more. The team is coordinating with the United States Coast Guard and the marine industry to determine construction impacts and limitations to construction activities. The contractor will advise of any potential closures or changes should the need arise at the construction open house in the future. There is no right-of-way acquisition for this project. All work will be done within the existing footprint of the project corridor. The construction is planned to begin between the spring of 2024 and the winter of 2025 for both projects, and is expected to be completed in the spring of 2026. The estimated cost for the roadway project is about $1.2 million and about $25.5 million for the bridge project, for a total of $26.7 million. The team is currently looking at logistics of each project, the roadway and bridge, to craft the most efficient plans for when the work will be done within the timeline. FDOT is currently conducting a Project Development and Environment, or PD&E, study that is evaluating intersection alternatives at and along State Road 5 US 1 Federal Highway and State Road 838 Sunrise Boulevard that could reduce traffic congestion and delays, improve multimodal mobility, and safety in the area. This is better known as the Gateway PD&E study. The Gateway PD&E study is a different project than the Sunrise Boulevard Bridge project. Although it is in the same general location, it is down the street from the project we are speaking about today. Gateway is still in the planning phase, and Sunrise is in the design phase. The Sunrise Boulevard Bridge project is anticipated to be complete by the time the Gateway project construction begins. As a resident or stakeholder in the area, we want to make sure you are aware that you may be receiving information from both projects at the same time. Please be sure to look out for notifications from both projects, as they are in different stages of development and will have various opportunities for you to provide input. For more information on the Gateway PD&E study, please visit their project website at www.fdot.gov/projects/US1 Gateway PDE. This is a virtual public meeting hosted to provide multiple ways for the public to receive information about the project and provide input. We will be hosting an in-person public meeting on May 24th, 2023 at 6 p.m. at the Beach Community Center, located at 3351 Northeast 33rd Avenue, Fort Lauderdale, Florida 33308. You may register to attend the in-person public meeting using the following link displayed here, or you can scan the QR code. Registration is not mandatory for attendance. The same presentation you viewed today will be covered at the in-person public meeting, and a recording of today's presentation will be made available on the project website. Why is this? This part of the public meeting is to hear from you. Comments and questions are welcomed from our participants and can be submitted via the question box located on your GoTo control panel. Written comments can also be submitted on the project website at www.d4fdot.com/BC-FDOT/SR_838_Sunrise_Boulevard_project.asp, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. You can also email or mail your comments and questions to the project manager directly. The project manager's contact information is displayed on the screen. You can email him at adam.naeem@dot.state.fl.us or call him at 954-777-4440 or toll free at 866-336-8435 extension 4440. The contact information is also available on the public meeting notification you may have received by mail. We would like to acknowledge any elected officials who may have joined the meeting during the presentation.
I'd like to also acknowledge that Commissioner John Herbst and Commissioner Steve Glassman from District 2 and District 1 are on the line and have been for the entire presentation. And if they'd like to say a short few words, they can.
Here. Let's see, Commissioner Herbst, if you would like to speak, you can unmute yourself. Okay. Nope. Okay, and Commissioner Glassman is Erica Franceschi.
Yes.
Good evening.
Yes, Hi, Commissioner Glassman. Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you, and thank Adam and the entire team. It was very interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing all of these improvements, and especially this tying into the Gateway project as well. I just wanted to say thank you. Found it very informative. We'll share the information with our district, and just keep us posted, and we look forward to the progress as this makes its way down the timeline. So again, thank you very much for the information. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, we will now be reading through the questions that have been submitted by our attendees. So we have a question here asking about any noise abatement measures that will be considered by the project.
So with the aluminum deck, it should reduce the noise considerably. I also have Ron Sanchez, who is the EOR for the bridge portion, to elaborate.
A lot of the noise that is usually associated with movable bridges comes from the open grading deck that is what you drive on when you go across the actual movable span. And often that's generated from deficiencies in the connection between the grading and the steel framing. Basically, there's welds that hold that grading onto the steel frame, and over time, they start to fail. That's actually a major issue that we're going to be addressing as part of the project. So on any project, just repairing those welds or putting new grading down would greatly improve the noise, the negative noise impacts that people feel when they're next to a movable bridge. But on this project, we're actually going to be adding a further enhancement where the open grading deck, which and those of you who are near the bridge will note, actually has partial wheel pads. That was an earlier attempt in order to reduce the noise. Our project will be replacing that open grading with the partial wheel pads with a solid aluminum deck system. It's actually an innovative system that is a weight neutral replacement. In other words, the new solid deck is approximately the same weight as the existing open grid combined with the wheel pads. Two things will happen when we replace that grading. First, the connection details between the aluminum deck and the framing are much more robust than the welds that we're accustomed to using to connect open grading decks with the steel framing. The connections are now structural connections that are much more robust. In addition to that, the fact that the deck will now be solid, in other words, it will no longer have holes that you can look down through the deck into to see the water below the bridge. That solidness will actually serve to minimize noise that emanates from the bridge. So the neighbors to the bridge should experience a great reduction in road noise emanating from the movable bridge.
Wonderful. Someone was asking if the bridge leaves will align better now from closing, but it sounds like you covered that. Yep. The active arterial management staff is also on the line as well, and they'd like to say that they will be working with Broward County Traffic Engineering to make any signal timing adjustments during construction once it starts if problems do arise. Thank you so much for that, David. So we do have a question asking if the Jersey barriers can just be moved to the other side of the bike lane.
Let's go ahead and go back to the earlier part of the presentation. Hello, Abby. Nice to see you again. We did take a look at that, and we did find some issues with it functioning, with really the function of the bridge and really moving the barrier over. And that really has to deal with the joints and really how would we be able to functionally operate the bridge while also safely doing so for bicyclists and pedestrians alike. It's a little bit more of a nuanced conversation than just moving them from one place to the other, but we do believe that that extra 3 feet would provide a net benefit. And unfortunately, given the project constraints, we don't have enough room to do a full or really latitude right now to do a full bridge replacement. However, that's something that we can explore once the bridge reaches its expected lifespan, and obviously a study would have to be done subsequent to that to really flesh out what are the impacts associated with it and really expanding the full footprint of the bridge.
This is Ron Sanchez again. I just want to clarify the difficulty that we're having. The barrier can be moved. What can't be moved are the longitudinal joints. And the reason they can't be moved is because they're located based upon the location of the two main girders that support the entire movable span. So we can move the barrier, but to move the joints, we have to move the main girders, basically replacing the entire movable bridge structure. Why is the joint an issue? Well, that's the longitudinal joint, and it actually poses a danger to the bicyclist that you're trying to protect by moving the barrier. Those joints are wide enough to actually capture bike wheels and would pose a risk to bicyclists using the bike lane.
All right, we have a question here asking if there have been any consideration to add a reflective or white coating to the roadway to reduce heat from the roadway.
So, Jim, thank you for your comment again. Obviously, this probably has to do with reducing the heat island effect from roadways, and that's really contributing to more of a higher temperature from really reflection from the roadway. Unfortunately, it's still for at least the state of Florida, it's still in the beginning stages of development, so we don't have too much knowledge in its implementation. What I can say, however, that is being explored up at the state level, and I'm hoping that it can get implemented relatively soon within the state. But really, what we're looking at really is what can we do in this moment now.
All right, so we have another question here asking about the narrowing of the lane width with more expected volume and population coming to the area, and they would like to know how will that transition to the Sunrise and Federal Highway intersection.
So when we're talking about roadway volume, there's a little bit of a low correlation with the expected width, and really what we want to properly design for is not just vehicular traffic, but also pedestrian and bicyclist traffic as well. And given the fact that there's a limited amount of public right-of-way, it's a little bit of a battle between how can we incorporate a lot of these elements within that given footprint. But it's really state standard on minimum lane widths. We've been taking, it's been practiced for a while now of taking some of that excess space from some of the lanes and really redistributing it to the bicycle lanes and sidewalks. I will say though that we'll be providing sufficient room for transit services. So some of the more essential infrastructure such as buses will have more than adequate room to operate within the corridor.
We have a question on what are the drainage plans for the project?
So and me being a resident of the city of Fort Lauderdale as well, I am well aware of the flooding that occurred around the city recently. So regarding the topic of drainage, we did do an analysis of the drainage and found that it does operate well for the large majority of the time. For the special cases of flooding, such as the historic one that occurred recently, we did not take that into account, unfortunately, just because it was unprecedented. And really, within the confines of this project, it wasn't in the scope.
Next question.
All right, we have another question asking about the positioning of the bridge warning gate and the difficulty of the bridge tenders having people move back because they are so far removed.
Okay, so we are going to be reconfiguring the warning gates. There are several changes that are going to be made. First of all, currently there are ongoing, in other words, so when the vehicular traffic is approaching the bridge, that's called ongoing, and when it's leaving the bridge, that's offgoing. So in the ongoing direction, there are traffic gates which stop both vehicles and pedestrians. In the off-going direction, there are pedestrian gates, specifically just stopping people on the sidewalk, but there are no gates for vehicular traffic off-going. In the new configuration, we're going to be completely separating the gates for vehicles and pedestrians. There will be ongoing and off-going gates to control vehicular traffic independently from pedestrian gates, which are much closer to the movable span, to control traffic on the sidewalk. So this should address the concern about having pedestrians being set so far back when the gates are closed. And it's also going to allow the operator separate and distinct control of the different modes of traffic. They'll be able to stop vehicular traffic separately from stopping the pedestrian traffic. I'd like to also point out there are several other safety enhancements that will be added, audio and visual cues for pedestrians. There will be reflective lighting in the roadway to indicate where the gates are. And we're also adding camera systems to the bridge, which will be using artificial intelligence in order to assist the bridge operators with identification of people who are in areas that they should not be in when the bridge is being operated.
Thank you. And please submit your questions via the question pane if you have any. We would also like to mention that Judy Erickson, a transportation planner for the city of Fort Lauderdale, is also on the line. Thank you for joining us today, Judy. And thank you, Karen, also as well, Karen Warfel with the city of Fort Lauderdale as well. We just received a question on any changes for the tender house.
So currently the scope for the modifications for the tender house won't be particularly visible to the users of the bridge. We'll be replacing the windows and adding some access improvements for areas around the tender house, not necessarily directly to it. There will be additional platforms to aid maintenance workers to access the bascule piers and the span locks at the mid-span of the movable span. And we are relocating the parking for the tender operators. But when we say near the tender house, that parking will not be on the bridge structure. There are currently 2 locations that we're looking at for the tender parking location. One is adjacent to the roadway to the west of the bridge, and the other is to the east of the bridge. But those for the community adjacent to the bridge, it will look just like on-road parking, and I don't think it's something that you would be, that would be particularly noticeable to the general public.
Thank you. All right, we are still taking questions from the question pane. If you have any questions, please be sure to submit through the question pane. As a reminder, if you think of any other questions later on and you would like an answer, you can submit your questions to the project manager, Adam Naeem. His email address is on the screen, adam.naeem@dot.state.fl.us, or you can give him a call at 954-777-4440. Okay, we have a question on what measures will be taken in order to address speeding.
So some of the items to address the speeding in the area, which we know that is an existing and present issue, is really installing the mid-block crossings. It's going to be an additional signalized intersection, which would allow at least that straightaway approaching the bridge to have a little bit more of a stop condition to discourage the use of speeding in that area. In addition, this was more of a compound question. This was also addressing the bus stop. We'll be working with Broward County Transit on looking at any efficiencies for the bus stops in that area, but it's more of a coordination conversation with Broward County Transit as well.
We'd like to remind you that we have rescheduled the in-person public information meeting. It will now be held May 24th, 2023 at the Beach Community Center located at 3351 Northeast 33rd Avenue, Fort Lauderdale, Florida 33308. You can register, but registration is not mandatory in order to attend. Please, you can scan the QR code on the screen to register, or you can visit the link that is posted on the screen. We have a user that asked a question, L Bell. If you can please clarify your question that we received. Unfortunately, we don't fully understand your question. We would like to be able to answer correctly. So if you could please resubmit your question. Thank you. All right, thank you so much for resubmitting your question. So they have asked if there has been a consideration of a bus pull-off at the public parking lot.
So in that specific area, I don't believe we have the space to incorporate a bus pull-off, but that's something that we could definitely take under consideration and analyze a little bit more carefully.
All right, we will be on here until 7 p.m. and please submit your questions if you have any before we log off. All right, we have received a question on clarification of the construction timeline.
So thank you for your question, Andres. That is always a question regarding timelines. I know it's frustrating, including us engineers, regarding project timelines. However, in this economy, we're dealing with a lot of material shortages. So we kind of built that into the timeline. In addition, we're trying to phase the project in a way to not disrupt some of the events along A1A, as well as consider the public, the traveling public, which also considers the seasons that we do conduct the roadway work. So that's really the timeline of why it's taking that long, but the true construction time should take around 2 years, not 3.
Okay. We do see Commissioner Glassman's office is having difficulty accessing the presentation online. We will be posting a recording of the presentation on the project website by the end of this week, but we will also send you a direct presentation. Thank you for letting us know. All right, we have a question in concern of the number of accidents that occur at Northeast 26th Avenue and Sunrise near the bridge. And they're asking if raising a crosswalk will slow traffic trying to rush the bridge.
So in this instance, raising the crosswalk was not part of the scope. However, we have a number of different improvements along Northeast 26th Avenue and Sunrise to be able to mitigate some of the speeding and crossing issues. So in addition to our coordination with Broward County Traffic, in the near term, we've improved some of the signal timing to allow a little bit more time and space for people to cross the street. In addition, we will be installing speed feedback signs, and you should be able to see a decrease of people speeding because of that mid-block crossing. So it's really artificially slowing down drivers as they approach the intersection, and it will probably have a net benefit to the actual intersection itself.
All right, this is your last chance to submit any questions through the question pane. If you have any last minute questions, please do so now. All right, well, as always, we encourage your input to help the department in providing you with the best transportation experience possible. Any additional comments or questions after the meeting, please submit them to Adam Naeem, the FDOT project manager, at the contact information shown on this slide. On behalf of the Florida Department of Transportation and our presenters, thank you for joining us today and have a good evening.